There, let's begin part two of chapter two's notes. This section is about the important organic molecules that are all out there. You learned a lot of these already in biology the first time around, but let's go over them here. Organic molecules, anything that contains carbon and, at minimum, at least a hydrogen. It's not just carbon by itself. Carbon by itself is not considered organic. Excuse me. In order to be organic, it has to have carbons attached to other things. The most simplest organic molecules right here. This is methane. And this is ethane. And this is naphthalene, basically, right here. So we have a lot of different options. These are chains of carbons with some hydrogens attached. These are organic molecules. Anything with hydrogens and carbons, we're going to call it a hydrocarbon. Your book calls a lot of things hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons, a major important example of hydrocarbons would be fossil fuels or oil or petroleum. They're made out of quite a few of these hydrocarbons. So your book is going to refer to hydrocarbons throughout all the chapters. And when it talks about hydrocarbons, we're probably going to be talking about fossil fuels or petroleum products of some sort. Well, these fossil fuels, these petroleum products, and these hydrocarbons, you can take chemicals and turn them into plastic. So the plastic that we have on our planet, it was made out of a fossil fuel. So why is plastic a bad thing for the planet? We make it out of fossil fuels. Therefore, we are pulling fossil fuels from the earth in order to produce all of the plastic products out there. Fancy words here, polymer. Polymer is a large macromolecule that has a bunch of pieces attached together. These pieces are called monomers. Mono meaning one, poly meaning many. Many mers, one mer. So these individual pieces, the subunits are called monomers. You attach them together and you make polymers. And when you attach them together, you make really big polymers. They're pretty much macromolecules, all right? First class, proteins. What is important about proteins? Well, you need to know proteins are used basically in structure, in tissue, and support, and even in some cases, use a little bit in energy. What I mean by that is enzymes, for example, here. These are proteins that catalyze and speed up chemical reactions. This is how enzymes are important for our bodies and how they produce energy and how they do all of their activities. We have proteins, immune system defense proteins that are made out of proteins. Basically, these are help our immune system to basically target and kill things. They're called antibodies, for example. Skin, hair, tendons, cell membranes, muscle, these all have a lot of protein in them. All right. What are the building blocks of proteins? They're called amino acids, or the monomers of proteins, same thing, or amino acids. So a chain of amino acids will become a protein. This is a picture showing you enzymes and how they work. You don't need to know this part. This is a little bit in detail, but they have what's called an active site. What the enzyme acts on is called a substrate. It attaches to the active site. The enzyme is like a machine doing its work, and then it releases the products. In this case, it created something different, helped facilitate a reaction, and then release something. Nucleic acids, the second group of macromolecules that we need to talk about. Well, these guys are our DNA and our RNA. This is our hereditary information. What are they made out of? They're made of these things called nucleotides. So the monomers or the building blocks of nucleic acids are nucleotides. DNA, RNA, these are nucleic acids. That's what the NA stands for. Deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid. What are these guys made out of? They're made out of nucleotides. What is the whole purpose of this? Well, your body makes proteins. Proteins are very important, like the enzymes and the function and the structure. Basically, nucleic acids are the blueprints for building those proteins. A gene is a section of a chromosome that codes for one specific protein. Carbohydrates. These guys are used mainly for us for quick energy. We store a little bit, plants store a little bit, depending on whether your starch is a plant, glycogen is a human or an animal. They're used in structure. This is cellulose, which is plant cell walls, chitin, which is the exoskeleton of an insect. So what are carbohydrates made out of? By the way, they're made out of simple sugars, also called monosaccharides. Simple sugar or monosaccharide, one sugar. Glucose is the most common simple sugar. It's what we may call blood sugar if you ever get a blood sugar test. I already mentioned cellulose is the plant cell wall, insect exoskeleton, storage, energy storage in plants, energy storage in animals. Lipids. Lipids, this is our long-term energy and our cell membranes, and there's some structure here and some chemical messengers. So let's talk about these. What are lipids made out of? They're made out of what's called a bunch of fatty acids attached to glycerols usually. Fatty acids are hydrocarbon chains, carbons and hydrogens, carbons and hydrogens. So here's an example of a hydrocarbon fatty acid chain right there. Hydrophobic. Lipids are always hydrophobic, which means they do not dissolve in water. What that means is if you put a lipid in water, it will separate from the water. This is what happens to your salad dressing when your oil and your vinegar separate from each other. In order to dissolve something like a lipid, you need to dissolve it in something else that is also hydrophobic. So in order to dissolve lipids, oil would be a good dissolving agent for something that is a lipid, basically. Fats are a type of lipid. In our bodies, they're called triglycerides. Oils and fats, these are both lipids, and they are for energy storage, long-term energy storage. Phospholipids, these are down here. These are cell membrane structure. Main portion of our cell membrane is made out of these. Your cell membrane also has proteins that are embedded within, but the main part of your cell membrane is made out of lipids. The wall of your cell membrane is made out of these tails, these lipids, these hydrocarbons right here. All right. Waxes are another example of a lipid. They don't dissolve in water. What's important about waxes? People put them on their car. Why do they put it on their car? They put it on their car so their paints repel water. Plants, leaves, real shiny leaves have wax on them, and that helps repel water. And leaves of certain, birds with their feathers, they get wet, they'll get heavy, but the wax on their feathers will repel water, so they don't get heavy and wet, making them unable to fly. Another important lipid is cholesterol or steroids. Cholesterol is used to make steroids. Steroids are used to make chemical messengers called hormones. Examples of these hormones would be estrogen and testosterone, because those are the most common ones that you have probably heard about. So cholesterol in our diet is used to produce chemical messengers called hormones. All right? We're going to learn later on in a chapter that there's these things that are called endocrine disruptors, and your endocrine system is the system that makes your hormones for you. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that affect your body's ability to make hormones. Excuse me. All right. That ends this lecture.